Okay, so hello everyone. This is Audrey Washington, Fiercely Financial Coaching. This is like my um, fourth time trying to do this because what happens is there's supposed to be like a little box where I can also see myself on the Facebook Live, but for some reason it's just dark today. I guess maybe that's indicative of the times we're in, but I see that it is still filming. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with this. I don't have a lot of time because I have a class that starts at 12:30 and I need to make sure I'm on that on time. But I did want to come on. First of all, like many of you, I am definitely just outraged by the murder of Mr. Floyd. I have not wanted to watch the video. I have not. Of course, I've got snippets of it, but just definitely have not, wanted to see it fully because I just don't think that I can just manage watching someone being killed, right in front of me on purpose. And, even more to the point that other people just, other cops stood around and just let it happen. No intervening at all. And so I'm certainly, my heart is broken for his family to have to witness that, but also, just all the other things that have happened. The Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many others, Eric Garner, and certainly the hey Lois, how are you, sis? Thanks for joining. And so I was wondering, how I could take my social stance today and still keep it in line with money talk. And the point, the place I'm coming from today is really about the economic inequities of what's going on in this country. So I made some signs because I didn't have time to try to get to connected with the the trying to connect the presentations with the Facebook Live. But I want to just come from okay, good, Tammy, because I can't see myself, so that's why I didn't think it was work. Um, uh, yeah, so thanks for letting me know. Okay, so anyway, so this is where I'm going to come from today, and I started to think about this and look at some, one of the things I think that white people also don't understand about our history in this country is how, from an economic standpoint, we are just so behind where they're at. So I made some signs. The first thing is, in 1607, that's when the first settlers came here. They came to Jamestown. And then in 1619 were the first slaves. Okay, so 1619 first slaves. So if you know, last year there was a lot of conversation about, this being the 400th year since slavery. Um, so the first settlers came, right? And then 16 first slaves. Um, from there, 1620 um, pilgrims came into Massachusetts, right? So those were some of the dates. So this is my sign, and I know it's kind of bootleg, but we're going to roll with this today because it gives you the information. So we got 1607, 1619, 1620 significant dates in our. Now, the next significant time was that in 1865, slavery ended, right? So slavery ended on the books. Let's say that. So you could no longer really own people, but there were other types of bondage that this country put black people into. Okay, so going into, of course, where once they ended slavery, what did they do? How did they make a living? How did they take care of themselves? Family. So even though slavery technically was over, there was still, black people were still under, what is the word? I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but they were still not free to move about, free to earn a living. So there still wasn't freedom. So in 1865, slavery ended. So this is my sign. So if you're talking about 1619, first slaves came here, 1865, slavery ended, you're talking about 246 years of slavery. And so when I calculated that, if you see here, I have 5 generations enslaved. And I put that down because the average life of people around that time was about 50 years old. And so if I estimate that, you divide 50 years into the 246, you have about 5 people, right? So that means your children, you, your parents, your grandparents, right? And your great grandparents, 5 generations enslaved, okay, for a lifetime. All right, so let's just think about that. So that's what we're looking at. So if you think about as a white person, um, how your life would be different if you had 5 years um, enslaved, okay, and different from many perspectives, but I'm talking economics today. So if you had 5 years, 246 years, and 5 generations where you weren't making any money, what would your life be like? Okay, so that's the next thing we're talking about. And so we got, so slavery ends 1865, and so I'm minusing 16, 19 equals 246 of slavery. Okay, average. Trying to type and talk. Okay, so average age, average life, 50 years. So 40 years working as a slave for free, right? Total of 5 generations in a family enslaved. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. All right, so the next thing is that I did a rough calculation. Now I tried to Google some numbers to figure out what people were earning daily back in that time, right? So I couldn't really get anything, but I started with, let's say, people between that 1619 1865 were making $1 a day, right? So you're talking about $365 a year. So if I was working 40 years, if somebody had been working 40 years and I was earning $1 a day at $365 dollars a year, right? Times 40 years, I would be at 14,600 that I could earn, okay? That I could earn in my lifetime, okay? That's what I could earn. All right. So with that, right? So you got dollar a day earnings times 365 equals, of course, 365 times 40 years equals 14,600. So you got 14,600 that as a slave, if I hadn't been a slave, I could have earned that in my lifetime. Okay? And some people, sometimes you'll see information that says, you know, amount of money is in today's numbers. Okay, so you can kind of look at that too. All right, so we got that. So I know that as a slave, I was not able to earn my $14,600. Right, in my lifetime, 40 years work. Right, so they had kids working. So if I was working at 10, many of them were working younger. But if I say 10 years old to 50 and I'm working as a slave, I was not able to earn $14,060. Okay. So the next thing I looked up is how many people were enslaved, right? So I got some data from the 1850 census that said 3.2 million slaves. Okay, so 3.2 million people were enslaved as of the 1850 census. So if I take that 3.2 million, right? So if I take 3.2 million slaves and I multiply that by the 14,600 slave would have earned in their lifetime, I get $46.7 billion. Okay, $46.7 billion. So just so everybody is clear, right? Particularly white people who don't realize too why we are, behind them in so many ways. So if you think about it, remember I started off with first settlers arrived, right? So on day one, 1607, the first settlers or the pilgrims in 1620 on day one could start working on their wealth. Okay? From that very day that they got here, they could start working on their wealth. Um, and so, of course, we know the history. We are talking about black people today, but let's not forget that they stole the land, the native people who were already here, right? And so all of this was happening. I don't know if anyone in New York, Tammy, you might have gone, has ever taken the ferry over to Governor's Island. And I did that it's probably about 10 years ago now. I went over there with my mom and my sister. It's a beautiful space. You can do some historical things over there. And they also, a lot of times, at that time, people were, sorry, I'm getting a message. People were, it was a African American like festival kind of thing they had over there that day. But anyway, so we walked around, and one of the things that's so ironic, and that was 10 years ago, so it was kind of before, everybody was running around with cell phones and taking pictures and stuff. But I remember, and I'm definitely going to go back when I can so I can find this picture and take this picture. But I remember being like mortified that they talked about how the U.S. Actually, the people that were there during the time got the land from the native people that were there. And it's like I said, space. People sometimes rent it out and have activities there, weddings and different events. Some business, companies come over there. And the ferry is right around where the Staten Island ferry is, Tammy, and it just goes there and comes back. So anyway, they talked about how they got the land from the native people by giving them like an arrow and some some stones, some stuff and stuff like I can't say on camera, really some BS, right? And they were proudly displaying this plaque of what got this land from the native people, really by giving them nothing. Okay, so it wasn't like it was 100 bows and arrows and things like that. It was just a few things that they traded for the land. And and the fact that they have proudly put that on a plaque lets you know that with no disclaimer about yeah we got over on them kind of thing. They put that on a plaque because they think it's okay, right? And it's not. So that is really what I wanted to bring to you today. That from an economic standpoint, we are way behind. And that's why the subject of reparations always comes up, because we're behind, right? We're behind. And so even when slavery was over in 1865, like it wasn't like we were free to move. They were still trying to keep us down. When we started to go to our own little spaces, like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they called it the Black Wall Street, or in Rosewood, where we, insulated ourselves and said, okay, we're over here. They still found ways to come in, and both of those incidents, actually, in terms of how they destroyed towns and those communities and killed people, was around a white woman claiming a black man did something to her. Okay, that's how those things initiated, and they felt like they were well within their rights, the white people, to defend her honor. Okay, to defend her honor, and of course we know Rosewood was made into a movie. I'm not quite sure why Black Wall Street, that situation had never been made into a movie. But those are the things that happen, and so turn, we have had to start over, right? So this is the economic inequalities that are going on. And as well, if you notice how, and I posted this on a Facebook friend I have, on her post, who happens to be white, in terms of talking about the protesters, and I don't, I don't condemn, right? I think the protesters are fine. I think I'm talking about the violent part of it, right? I don't condemn it. I don't condone it. I do understand it, right? Because this country has been built in a way that violence is okay. Violence is okay. It's acceptable. And so if you have always done that, right, you can't really get mad when it's being now done to you, right? That's really, and the starting point of where we're at most recently with Mr. George Floyd's murder is that it was a violent act, right? So it was a violent act that now we're looking at, and now we want people to be calm and peaceful, right? So it was precipitated by a violent act. Now we want the response to be calm and peaceful, all right? And so if you think about it, going back to what, a couple years ago when Colin Kaepernick was protesting, the man silently took a knee. He didn't jump up and down. He didn't say anything. And everybody was outraged about that, right? So now, and I shouldn't say everybody, many people were outraged about that. He's un American. Why is he doing that? All of that. And so you didn't listen then, and now here we are. Here we are, right? And it's unfortunate that it's happening in a time where we're already, in a crisis with the pandemic and already stressed. But, basically, out how it's going to play out. And so I thank you. I got to jump off because I got about 5 minutes to kind of run into my class. But I thank you for listening and watching. Feel free to comment, like, and share. But I just wanted to give you some economic facts today about the inequality of where we are in this country. And keep that in mind. $46.7 billion is what this country, and I'm just doing a rough calculation, right? So I did that based on dollar a day earning. If people were earning more than $1 a day, then that number is even higher. So you're talking about, from doing some 1800 numbers, that $46.7 billion is how this country benefited, right? And white people benefited economically by having slave labor. Okay, that's right. And so for white people who feel like, well, I didn't own any slaves, but you have benefited and your family has benefited from slavery. Okay, from an economic standpoint, from social standpoint, all of that, your family has benefited. So I am happy to say that I haven't seen this before. That so many white people, so many corporations are taking a stance in this situation. I don't know about you. I haven't seen a time where so many white people, in fact, a woman who, she's a writing coach that I have worked with in the past, she posted something, and in fact, she inspired me because I told her she had posted something. It was a link that said, these casually racist things that authors write. And of course, she's a writing coach, so she's in that space. And wrote, one of the points was, oftentimes when white authors introduce a black character, they specifically say that the person is African American. And this is a white author that I read, and I'm not going to last here. And I've noticed that, that she'll, when it's, obviously all her characters probably are white, but I don't know because she never says it's a white woman, it's a white man. But as soon as she puts an African American, which not often, I will say, which I don't have a problem with that. Always make sure she says it's an African American woman. And every time I'm like, why is she putting that in there? And I've been saying, what should I do? But you know what? When I saw got the person's email, I actually sent a message to the author explaining that and put a link to the article. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if she'll respond or not, or her team. I just want to, I was encouraged to bring that to light today. So I thank the writing coach Cheryl for doing that. All right, everyone. So take this economics lesson, this history lesson, share it, like it, make a comment. I appreciate you for being here, Tammy and Lois. Yes. Okay. So I'm sorry. I haven't been able to. Okay. Good. I'm glad that you liked the breakdown. Yes. I was trying to, like I said, do some quick numbers. Yep. They destroyed and killed Lois for sure. And so, yeah, share this information. Like I said, you could, even though my little signs were bootleg, I said I gotta have some visuals today. Um, and so, okay, Tammy. So yeah, I hope. But yeah, so I think I'll upload this one. Make sure to upload it on YouTube. Yeah. So thank you so much for the support and the encouragement. Everyone, please stay safe. That is so and just also stay in peace. Okay, stay in peace, if not anywhere else, in your mind and your spirit, because stuff is crazy. And it's hard when things are, we are so challenged. But I think this is something that was definitely coming, needs to come. Like I said, I do hear more speaking out, denouncing this than ever before. And I am, thankful for that. I am not, happy that it had to come at the expense of so many lives lost in terms of, people that have been murdered at the hands of white people and police for no reason. And of course, remember, it's so ironic that the only time a white and police officer has been, other than the Amber guy, she was convicted, but that was pretty clear cut. But the police officer, kind of in the line of duty, was, and I think he's from Minnesota as well, who killed the white woman. And again, if he should have been, convicted because he was in error, fine. But why is the conviction is not happening when it's white police against black? And I will go on record as saying, yes, there are many good law enforcement people. I know, but as we have seen, if you stand there and don't do anything when you see a wrong, right? The whole see something, say something, because that's what the police have said, right? Then you were just as culpable. I got to run to my class. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Be safe and just stay in prayer. Bye bye.